When John Martin's son vanishes without a trace, his desperate search leads him to unimaginable truths hidden within the walls of his own home. What dark secrets lie in the shadows? Join John on this gripping journey of deception and hope. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more thrilling stories. The echo of the sledgehammer hitting the wall reverberated in John's chest. The wall began to break apart, exposing a secret space concealed behind it. His faithful canine companion yelped excitedly at his side, nudging him forward. Thoughts raced through John's mind. What secrets could be tucked away here? The mysterious circumstances of his child's disappearance were not only devastating but also enigmatic. Law enforcement was unable to find answers, and John had pursued every possible clue, yet they were all searching in the wrong places. John Martin had always enjoyed a comfortable life. He worked as a manager in a video game company, which funded a life of luxury in a grand home in Seattle. He shared this life with his son, Milo, and Milo's stepmother, Eva. Their life appeared idyllic, brimming with warmth, merriment, and security. John took satisfaction in providing generously for his family, ensuring their every need was met. Yet life is fickle, and circumstances can change rapidly. The tranquility of their household was soon replaced by unimaginable disaster. 4 years prior, Milo, aged 8, vanished without a clue. It was a horrific event that parents dread. John and Eva spared no effort in their desperate search, investigating every potential lead. They contacted the police, hired private detectives, and spent countless restless nights tormented by worries and questions about their cherished child. The home that once resonated with Milo's cheerful giggles now felt empty and chilling. Their sorrow was debilitating, but the hope of locating Milo kept them going. John played his part in this distressing period. He distributed flyers featuring Milo's image daily, hopeful for significant tips. He incessantly implored authorities not to abandon the case. Fired by paternal love, his resolve never wavered. He couldn't rest. He refused to let go of the possibility that Milo might still be found. His orderly life was disrupted by an unending quest for the truth, a pursuit consuming all his waking hours. Despite his tenacity, however, the enigma remained unsolved. 4 years passed without any developments in the investigation. It was as if Milo had inexplicably vanished from his bedroom. The authorities had no viable leads or promising indicators to track. The walls of their home, which once felt like a haven, now appeared more akin to a jail, sequestering memories from happier periods. John was constantly pained by Milo's absence. His loved ones tried to console him, but his anguish persisted as an ever-present shadow. Each day served as a painful echo of the son he had lost, and the spark of hope that drove him flickered with every passing moment. Unbeknownst to him, John had been seeking in all the wrong places. His son was closer than he thought. His search took him across borders, yet he was oblivious to the fact that the answers to his tormenting questions were concealed within his own dwelling. His affection for Milo propelled him to the farthest corners, unaware that the real terror of the situation was more proximate than he had ever reckoned. The absence of leads regarding his son only deepened his distress, oblivious to the dreadful truth veiled right before his eyes. Over these 4 years, John struggled to comprehend what could have happened to his son. Each detail, every moment of the day Milo vanished played in an incessant loop in his mind. He longed to find one overlooked hint. He sought answers from everyone who had crossed paths with Milo, from neighbors to schoolmates, but all in vain. The uncertainty tormented him, leading to countless nights engulfed by thoughts of all that could have transpired. The weight of the unknown bore heavily upon him, yet his deep affection for Milo kept him resolute in finding the truth. Post Milo's disappearance, John recalled a statement made by Milo's birth mother, Melissa. Despite losing a custody battle during their separation, Melissa had adamantly wanted to take Milo with her. Her resentful phrases lingered in John's mind. The vow to get Milo back suddenly seemed convincing. The idea of Melissa being linked to Milo's disappearance persisted. Memories of their turbulent past, coupled with her earnest longing to be with their son, continued to vex him. He had to consider every possible scenario, even those that caused him the most pain. With law enforcement's assistance, John had tirelessly combed through Melissa's residences across the state, hoping to find some trace of their son. His journey took him to multiple places, always searching for any sign that she had taken Milo somewhere. However, he couldn't find solid proof indicating she had taken the child. Each meticulous search ended in disheartening reality, and every false lead further dampened John's hope. Yet despite escalating feelings of desolation, he couldn't disregard the thought that Melissa might know something about Milo's fate. The lack of major leads only intensified the enigma, drawing John further into a vortex of desperation and loss. Eva constantly reassured John that things would turn around eventually. She did her best to help him overcome his grief, providing comfort during the most challenging times. John's outlook on life was brightened by her unwavering optimism. Even when he found it difficult to see the silver lining, she was his cheerleader, pushing him to maintain faith that Milo would return. Her deep affection and dedication became a pillar of strength, guiding him through the internal storm that threatened to overwhelm him. Together they endured the unknown with tenacity. Eva harbored dreams of having children with John, but soon realized his grief from losing a child deterred him from even entertaining thoughts of having more. The agony of Milo's disappearance left a profound impact on John. The idea of introducing another child into a world where such heartbreaking incidents could occur was too much to bear. Eva's yearning for a family was met with John's dread and sorrow, silently driving a wedge between them. Amid her own heartache, Eva chose to support John, empathizing with his suffering and fostering hope for healing. 4 years on, a rescue dog John adopted, named Max, began staring at the living room wall incessantly. Max had been in his new home only a few hours when he began barking uncontrollably. Eva was out, oblivious to the fact that her husband had brought home a dog, meant to surprise her, a sign that he was finally ready to consider starting a family. But Max's demeanor took an unexpected turn that would soon unveil a shocking secret. Max continued to bark, his gaze fixated on the wall. John was puzzled by this erratic behavior. He brushed it off as the dog's anxiety in a new environment. As the hours rolled on, Max's strange antics escalated. He scratched at the wall, whimpered, and continued to bark, as if urgently trying to convey something. Intrigued yet clueless, John failed to realize the importance behind Max's desperate antics. Unbeknownst to him, Max was leading him to a discovery that would transform everything. It was only a matter of time before Max's agitation began to rise. He didn't stop barking, looking as if he was begging John for something. John felt growing anxiety as he tried to understand Max's unusual behavior. He had a hunch that Max was trying to communicate something vital. Feeling the same distress Max seemed to feel, John knew he needed to intervene. It was time to reveal what was behind the wall. Held by an unexplainable intuition, John, albeit confused and worried, finally grabbed a sledgehammer and started dismantling the wall. As he struck, the wall's plaster crumbled, exposing a concealed cavity. His heart raced as he disassembled the wall, not knowing what lay behind it. The room was dim and damp, unlike the rest of his home. As the dust cleared, John spotted a figure hunched in the gloom. He gasped as he realized he had found his lost son, Milo. Milo emerged from the wall, shaking and frail. The first things John noticed were that his son had a gag in his mouth, and he was dirty and underfed, although he had evidently been eating. The boy's eyes were horrified and bewildered, his clothes worn and ragged. John ran over and held him tightly, overwhelmed by complex emotions: relief, terror, and incredulity. How had Milo ended up inside the wall? Who was responsible for this? The answers weren't clear, but John was incredibly grateful to have his son back in his arms. The wall, to his dismay, muffled all sounds like an acoustic prison. John realized that barely any sound could escape the wall. The implications were chilling. Whoever had imprisoned Milo there ensured that his pleas for help would remain unheard. The idea that his son had been so near yet unreachable was heart-wrenching. John found it impossible to imagine someone capable of such a wicked deed. Adding to the mystery was the discovery of the soundproof wall, leaving him with even more questions about the perpetrator and their motives. The narrow space contained grimy food containers and a small sleeping mat, along with some water bottles. It became clear that someone had kept his son captive within those walls, sustaining him just enough to prevent escape or significant noise. The living environment was horrific, a haunting mirror of the ordeal endured by Milo. Examining the indicators of his child's confinement, John was swallowed by a tidal wave of fury and sadness. The desire to identify those responsible and ensure their punishment ignited within him. The thought that someone he knew might be responsible struck him hard. John's mind raced, probing each unsettling likelihood. He would not find rest until the mystery was solved. His immediate plan was to get Milo medical attention. The little boy could barely verbalize, his voice filled with alarm and bewilderment. As John lifted Milo from the residence, he pledged to unmask those behind this dreadful experience. His dedication, fueled by his affection for his son, propelled him forward. Milo appeared weak and pasty, frightened at the sight of sunlight. The sight devastated John. He couldn't fathom how his son had endured such a thing unbeknownst to him. He had to locate his ex-wife and bring her to justice. But first, he needed to rush Milo to the hospital. Milo's health was the priority, guaranteeing he received much-needed medical attention. The ride to the hospital was nerve-wracking, as Milo kept crying and trembling. John attempted to alleviate his distress, but the after-effects of Milo's shocking experience were overwhelming. The trip felt eternal, each passing second accompanied by Milo's cries. As they reached the hospital, John was overwhelmed with hope. Milo was finally secure, marking the commencement of their healing journey. The path ahead would be arduous, but John vowed to stand by his son no matter what. At the medical facility, it was determined that Milo had several malnutrition-related problems and abnormalities. He was clinging to life, and it was a marvel he had not yet given up. Medical professionals moved swiftly to tend to his numerous injuries. John remained steadfastly by Milo's side, gripping his hand and offering soothing words of comfort. Seeing his son so frail and vulnerable was nearly unbearable, but John pushed his pain aside. Milo required his presence now more than ever, and nothing could shake his steadfast determination. After ensuring his son was in safe hands, John reached out to Eva to fill her in on the situation. Shaken by the news, she hurried away from her job to be with the family at the hospital. The information hit her like a punch to the gut. However, her main focus was on bolstering John and Milo. Upon her arrival at the hospital, the sight of Milo was a gut-wrenching blow. She clung to John, sharing his anguish and relief. Together, they braced for the challenges lying ahead, intent on aiding Milo's recovery and getting to the bottom of his harrowing ordeal. Their united front and steely resolve would guide them through. After leaving Eva with Milo, John engaged a private investigator to dig into Melissa's past. The thought of resting escaped him until the person who did this to his son was unmasked. The investigator was relentless, probing for answers and scrutinizing every detail. John handed over everything he had, hopeful it would bring them closer to the truth. The continual quest for revelations proved daunting, yet John was driven by his deep love for his son. He remained steadfast in his quest to identify who was at fault, vowing not to rest until retribution was dispensed. The investigation was far from finished, but John stood prepared. Meeting the investigator outside the hospital, they spent hours discussing unfolding events. Together with the police, the investigators carefully combed through the wall where Milo was located. Before leaving the scene, they ensured that not a single piece of evidence was left uncollected. Each detail was painstakingly examined for leads. Anxiously observing the process, John silently prayed for a clue to lead them to the perpetrator. The enigma was gradually unfolding, yet numerous queries remained unanswered. John's resolve held steady, ready to chase every trail. However, their painstaking probe turned up no leads implicating Melissa. Instead, they discovered a set of fingerprints on the food containers inside the wall, matched Eva's. This left them dumbfounded and scrambling for answers. How did Eva's fingerprints end up in the sealed-off area where Milo was hidden? A wave of confusion and doubt swept over John. He was in shock. The fact that the woman who had supported him through thick and thin could be involved in such an atrocious act was mind-boggling. The investigation twisted in a startling direction, stirring John to question everything he assumed. Indeed, Eva was at the heart of it all. However, the problem now was that John had placed the responsibility of Milo onto her, once again, consolidating them at the hospital. He knew he had to get there as fast as he could. The harsh reality that Eva participated in his son's abduction delivered a crushing blow. His emotions surged with anger, deceit, and grief as he raced to the hospital. His ultimate concern was getting to Milo before Eva could inflict further damage. This horrendous reality bore heavily on him, prompting him to act swiftly. His profound attachment to Milo fueled his determination to shield his boy from harm. John had a gut feeling that Eva was one step ahead, but he couldn't comprehend her motive for committing such a wicked act. Why would she hurt Milo when she seemed to adore him deeply? His mind spun with these questions as he hastened toward the hospital. The sense of deceit was almost unbearable, but John knew he couldn't afford to wallow in it right now. His foremost concern was ensuring Milo's safety. The ticking clock was a grim reminder that every moment mattered. Fortunately, the investigator sensed something amiss and arranged for an officer to follow Eva. They noticed her pale, anxious demeanor as she sped away from the hospital, which resulted in her being apprehended. Eva's escape attempt only solidified their suspicions. Reports showed she was heading for the airport with a ticket to Europe, trying to dodge repercussions. The officer acted promptly, arresting her and preventing her from escaping. This crucial breakthrough in the case revealed her involvement. Justice was finally on the horizon. Eva was apprehended and accused of abduction and attempted homicide. She faced the resulting aftermath, reaping what she sowed. The procedure was an enduring ordeal, filled with intense battles in courtrooms and emotional chaos. John attended every hearing, vowing to ensure Eva answered for her deeds. Pertinent details about her intentions and actions were disclosed during the trial, creating a vivid image of treachery and avarice. The once trusted life partner and stepmother was now a criminal. Her apprehension signaled the start of a long path toward recovery and reconciliation for John and Milo. After months of complicated events, it was uncovered that Eva had planned to eliminate Milo to grasp John's sizable assets. John left most of his wealth to Milo, leading Eva to conclude that if Milo were no longer alive, John would revise his will to award her a more substantial share of his assets. Accepting this revelation proved to be difficult for John. He found himself betrayed by Eva, a woman he deeply loved and trusted, primarily motivated by greed and ambition. John struggled to reconcile his previous image of Eva with the reality of her wrongful deeds. However, Eva, flooded with guilt, lacked the resolve to end Milo's life. Instead, she stranded him, hoping John would revise his will in her favor. The dread of being exposed, combined with guilt, immobilized Eva, pushing her into misguided decisions like trapping Milo. While it was a distressing act, it reflected her internal struggle. Her conflict became visible during her hearing, but it barely softened the seriousness of her actions. John felt deep empathy for Milo, who had endured so much. He promised himself he would help his son recover from the traumatic ordeal. John didn't abandon the hope of reuniting with Milo, and he didn't modify his will. His unwavering love and determination kept him searching, despite the challenging odds. Milo's rescue represented this hope, a ray of light during the darkest times. John's faith in finding his son was rewarded. He now focused on aiding Milo's recovery journey. While the path ahead would prove difficult, John was prepared to navigate it with the same tenacity and affection that encouraged him to find Milo. Subsequent days were packed with medical appointments, therapy sessions, and immeasurable hours of support. Gradually, Milo's physical and emotional recovery began. Although the trauma he experienced would undoubtedly leave profound scars, he began to recuperate under the loving care of his father and the guidance of healthcare professionals. John remained a constant presence in Milo's life, providing comfort throughout his recovery journey. This tumultuous period strengthened their bond. Each inch forward in their healing journey represented victory, a testament to their resistance and love. A vital aspect of their journey was rebuilding trust. Milo, deceived by someone he relied on, needed to re-establish a sense of safety. John dedicated his efforts to sculpting a secure, loving environment for his son. They shared quality time, engaging in conversations, playful activities, and cherishing their family moments. The home that once felt like a cage transformed into a refuge for recovery and affection. John's constant reassurance paved the way for Milo to regain confidence, causing their bond to strengthen with each passing day. It was a prolonged healing journey, yet they confronted it together, gradually. As moments went by, a new lifestyle emerged for both John and Milo. The marks of previous trials never completely vanished, yet they adapted to living alongside them. Milo, now in his teenage years, resumed his education, surrounded by understanding companions and educators, facilitating his recovery. John persisted in his career, yet his priorities had shifted significantly. His devotion to his family took precedence, and he ensured to allocate plenty of time with Milo. Their existence had been perpetually modified, but they found joy in the subtlest occasions. The legal conflict with Eva was strenuous and lengthy. Every court hearing witnessed John's presence, adamant to ensure judicial fairness. Eva's involvement was indisputable. The evidence against her was irrefutable. The court proceedings exposed her treachery and the extent of her offenses. When John confronted her in court, a mix of rage and grief overwhelmed him. The woman he once loved felt unrecognizable, her deeds unforgivable. After the verdict, relief washed over them, but the path to complete healing was still far ahead. Justice was accomplished, allowing John to move toward a new chapter. With court hearings behind them, John and Milo concentrated on progressing. They carried on rebuilding their lives, curating fresh memories, and finding joy in the mundane aspects of life. The previous pains would never be entirely erased, yet they learned to dwell alongside them, deriving strength from their affection for one another. The house that once echoed sorrow now reverberated with cheer and love. John found comfort in knowing Milo was secure and had a bright future ahead. They welcomed each day with optimism and willpower. Gradually yet decisively, they regained their lost joy. John and Milo nurtured new interests, spent hours with loved ones, and reveled in life's modest delights. They embarked on travels, adventures, and created fresh memories. The remnants of the past lingered but no longer cast a shadow over their existence. John's love for his son acted as their constant pillar of strength, aiding them both to regain happiness and heal. Each day represented their resilience and the power of love, allowing them to stride forward. Side by side, they crafted futures brimming with promise and happiness. The relationship between John and Milo flourished with each passing day. Together, they had survived unparalleled difficulties and emerged stronger. Their mutual trust and affection were unassailable. John was not merely a parent to Milo, he was a companion, a confidant, and a continual source of encouragement. Their shared experiences allowed their bond to mature and fortify. They held on to the belief that together, they could withstand any storm that came their way. Despite the hardships, their shared experiences brought them even closer. Their beacon throughout their trials had always been hope. John's steadfast conviction that he would locate his child drove him forward, even through the bleakest moments. His optimism paid off and still acts as a pillar of strength for him and Milo. Their journey from the initial search to the path of recovery exhibited the immense power of hope. It was a reminder that faith can illuminate the way even in the face of overwhelming adversity. With hope and determination, John and Milo anticipated what the future held for them. They had triumphed over innumerable obstacles and were prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. While their past was an integral part of their history, it no longer defined them. Resilient and stronger, they were ready to face the future, hand in hand. John knew there were still challenges to face, but Milo's presence fortified him. Despite its trials, their journey succeeded in drawing them closer and strengthening them. Together, they looked ahead with unwavering spirit and robust resolve. Their journey had been a roller coaster of suffering, loss, and ultimately healing. They had braved unimaginable odds, emerging stronger. Their journey bore testament to the resilience of love, faith, and fortitude. As they faced forward, they did so with tranquility and hope. The former part of their lives would always reside within them, but it no longer forestalled their progress. As a team, they were ready to start afresh, stepping into a new era of hope, affection, and the prospect of a brighter tomorrow. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to approach it courageously, brimming with resolve.